breakout rooms that you guys weren't able to resolve and you want to reach out to me and ask right now. It could be your question, or you could just be helping your room out and be like, oh yeah, we didn't know how to answer this. Was there anything from right here, this welcome page, the QR code, that you guys don't understand? Okay, we proved that we could turn on our microphones, and I know it's weird, it's Algebra 2, you guys had Mr. Grapp last year, and he was like this and this and this all over the place, right? Did Mr. Grapp talk fast? Yeah, he did. One of you says yes. The rest of you are just staring at me. Hi. It's kind of weird. But yeah, Mr. Grapp was super, just very a loud personality, and so he probably kept your guys' attention a lot better than I'm going to, but I'll do my best for sure. But I know in Mr. Grapp's class, like you guys had an awesome dynamic going as far as class participation, etc. And that's kind of how my classroom usually is too, once we kind of get to know each other and you guys feel more comfortable, etc. So if there's ever anything in class, I'm taking some grad school classes right now too. They're on Zoom. And there's always these awkward downtimes of like the teacher asking a question and someone just put it in the chat and the teacher's just like awkwardly waiting and you're like, the answer's right there. If any of you are the outgoing type or the student leader type or even just the I just want class to move along and not be boring type, feel free to always just unmute yourself and say like, hey, it's in the chat, or hey, the answer is 4 and it wasn't me, it was Alyssa who answered. And I'm like, okay, cool. And depending on the day, I'll probably even make a chat moderator, because if you guys notice when I move Zoom off to the side, it kind of makes it so I only see part of the chat, and so that's a little weird also. But as we're looking here at our web page, since I did just ask you guys if you had questions, no one said anything. I am going to usually do a countdown. That way you guys at least know you have a little bit of time and like speak up now or kind of, okay, wait until later. Couple things I want to draw your attention to before we leave this page. Number 1, the Zoom link information. Some of you might have questions and you don't feel comfortable asking them right now in the chat or with your microphone. So there is every day a math lab. And that's not anything to be high stress or high pressure. That's just me being available and in Zoom. So that could be just thinking about my math classroom usually after school. That could be you coming in and muting yourself and just working on homework and having me in the background. If you ever like, hey, Miss D, on number 20, when it says, I could totally just answer it right then and there. That could be you coming specifically at some point in that time frame with like a troubleshooting question. And maybe I'll have you share your screen so that I could see what's going on, maybe with Big Ideas or with Google Classroom. Or that might be anywhere in between. It could even be a time for makeup tests. It could be a time for I don't know, other things like that. If you guys don't feel comfortable coming in when other people might be present, you could always ask for like an appointment. But my hope is that Math Lab and Math Lab every day gives us enough time so that if you guys ever have a personal question as far as math or as far as your homework or as far as your devices, your technology, and you can't get them answered anywhere else, that you feel comfortable enough just to pop in and ask. So that's Math Lab from 2 to 3:30 every day. And then class time is what we're in right now. Besides that, you guys also have your syllabus. So we are possibly going to take some notes today. Not a lot. You guys are actually kind of the chillest out of all my classes. Calculuses both had quizzes on their first day. Pre-calculus both got through their first section and has a homework, like a full book homework due on Friday. You guys, it's kind of more just introducing everything, troubleshooting everything, making sure we understand what all the different resources that we're going to be using are and how you can access them. But right here in your syllabus, if I zoom in just a bit, probably the main thing right now I want to draw your attention to is the course materials. So with the course materials, let me move my face out of the way. Normal math class, pencils, erasers, colored pens and pencils, pens or pencils if we are doing any sort of like graphing multiple functions at once, or highlighting things for like a quiz, a test, the final. You might want different colors for that. And then there are going to be times when we do corrections. Whenever we do corrections, I expect you to do that in a color pen. Not because I'm necessarily going to take points off. You're probably doing corrections on things that points have already been taken off. But I actually advise you to do corrections in your homework also. If like you do it and then you realize you actually did it wrong or you didn't know how to connect the steps, use there's some brain research behind it, but basically it's just trying to draw your attention to this is what I knew and this is the connection I needed to make, or this is the work that I missed, or this was the place that I should have done something differently. It kind of just helps you have a place to zero in on in a sea of pencil and math problems of like, oh, I should focus here because that's where I made a mistake, etc. So colors are definitely very helpful in math for lots of reasons. I say, and I added this for distance learning, an individual whiteboard or expo. And the reason for that is because teachers love whiteboards because we can write something and be like, oh, oops, didn't mean that. Like, oh, that's a mistake. And you can just erase, like I can erase it real fast and change it. Well, I mean, do you guys ever get annoyed when you're taking notes or when you're doing a problem and then you mess up and you're like, ugh, or even worse, the teacher messes you up and then you have to change it, especially if you're doing it in pen. So I think it's a great idea to have a whiteboard next to you, not to eliminate the need for notes. But if you're working in a breakout group, you can hold it up to the screen. If you're working like on a practice problem, and in Algebra 2, there are going to be some times the problems are kind of complicated. It might be a lot nicer to do that on a whiteboard, and then if you mess up on half of it, be like, all right, quick erase with like a towel, and then keep going. I just think it's a nicer way of doing math sometimes. A whiteboard's a lot lower stress as far as if you make a mistake. And in this class, it's not about perfection. It's definitely not about getting it right the first time. It's about building up and getting stronger. Think workouts. There's going to be a lot of different illusions and correlations with working out because math is a skill, and it's a skill that you should start slow until you kind of develop it and then speed up, speed up, speed up. Maybe you guys that play basketball with drills, you start slow until you get the skill and then you try to master it. We have our graphing calculator, the school. Oh, actually, no, sorry. Algebra 2, this might be new for some of you. Some of you were able to get away without a graphing calculator in geometry, and in Algebra 1, I don't even think you were allowed to have it, or you weren't. It definitely wasn't necessary. So for graphing calculators, I say a TI-84 Plus is what I'm using. You can technically get a TI-83, but they work differently, and they're a little bit harder to work with. Their operating system is older, if you guys know like tech at all. And so the 84 and beyond is pretty snazzy as far as a little bit easier to use. But with those, you definitely don't need the newest and the greatest and the best and the most expensive thing you can find. There are definitely used ones online in a lot of different areas. If you guys and your parents or your families are struggling getting you one, feel free to reach out. There is, and let me put it in the chat actually. See if I can do it to everyone. There we go. There is a really cool site online, since we are online right now, called Desmos, and that's actually a really snazzy graphing calculator site that can graph very easily, and it's free to everyone. And we might actually use it for class illustrations from time to time, but that's something that you could have up on your screen. And if you guys don't know already, which this is going to kind of mess up my screen, let me try to pull up something else random. There we go. There's a random window. There's a random window. If you ever want to see multiple windows on your screen at the same time, do you guys know that you just click, maybe you do, but maybe you don't. You click on that top little toolbar, just somewhere in that blank space, click and drag it to the side. It'll kind of fill space. Take the other one, click and drag it to the other side. It'll fill space. Oh, it doesn't like making that one. We'll do that one instead. And it'll kind of fill the space, and then you'll be able to see two different screens at once. That can always be really helpful, especially if you're trying to maybe like look at the Desmos graphing calculator. Let me pull this back up. But if you're looking at like the Desmos calculator while looking at the notes, while looking at our Zoom call, it might start to get kind of tricky. So thought that might be a cool shortcut for you guys. I use it a lot. And just a few of you, if you haven't figured it out yet, you're never stuck in like a teacher's share screen. Some people are stuck until they exit the full screen and then they realize they can kind of get to other apps, or there are cool shortcuts on your keyboard that make life faster, like Alt-Tab, or on a Mac, I think it's Command-Tab. And that's how I was able to kind of move around to different windows in the midst of presenting to you all. So just showing you guys some of the cool little tips and tricks that I've been using. But graphing calculator, even though it is important, especially when we get back into physical classes, and even though it's important for you to be able to use the features, you could technically just use Desmos for a little bit of time. But I am going to be needing to teach this to you because this is really important for your future math classes, okay? Some people do get a Casio, but if you do, I just can't teach it to you, but there are tons of videos online. Casio is kind of a good international calculator. A lot of people like it, but as far as here in America, Texas Instruments TI is the main one everyone uses. This is just stuff from the school as far as Zoom expectations, which is why I had you guys turn on your cameras. And a few of you guys, I'm so sorry, you've probably been asked by every single teacher today. So feel free to email me. Those of you that are like, I don't have a webcam, just email me. Let me know what's going on so we can talk through how to progress forward. But for today, we're okay. And then this next one, the phone or scanner for scanning and uploading documents. That might sound really awful, but when we go to Google Classroom and when I see if you guys have any questions there, hopefully that'll make a lot more sense too. So here we are as far as what you guys typically need for a normal day. Composition book, because that's where you're going to be keeping your notes. Few reasons for that. If you really want all of them, someone asked me in a previous class, come on by a math lab. I'll explain why I require a composition book. Basically, it's more sturdy, much easier to put on a shelf as far as college. Or any other time you might access this. We're going to make this into a really cool resource for you, hopefully, that you can use not only this year for open note quizzes and tests, as long as we're on distance learning, for studying for your final exam and doing any sort of review that kind of mixes problems from all throughout the semester, and you're like, I don't know how to do this. If we make a table of contents, you'll be able to get there and get to the proper place to remember how to do it and to study. But also for future math classes, if in a calculus class one day they're like, oh, we need to, or maybe they wouldn't even say we need to, be like, oh yeah, I just factored right there, and they move on, and you're like, factoring, oh, that's awful, let's go back to my Algebra 2 notes. Especially in pre-calculus, for you guys specifically, a lot of pre-cal is Algebra 2, but like a step up, and so in pre-cal especially, you're going to want your Algebra 2 notes to be able to review. So composition book for notes. A composition book for notes, but then also a spiral notebook for your homework, because even if you guys were physically in class, I don't know about you, but in some math classes, like you have all this math homework and it's in a folder and it's all messed up, and then like the little holes tear and it's just awful. I always have my students, at least the last few years, just keep a spiral of their homework, meaning never tear it out, never turn it in like that. Instead, they turn in like scans online to me so I can go and access any homework that I want as far as checking work or going over questions that they might have. Like, okay, let me pull up that homework and see, okay, so what was your question on number 7? So that's another use for you guys showing uploads of your work. But also then like your homework just stays nice and neat and all together, and you don't have to worry about papers going everywhere. But we're going to especially be using the spiral notebook as you guys are taking quizzes and tests. But you're going to be taking them on a computer, but doing the work on paper, hopefully not whiteboard. Just think in math, you always want your teacher to be able to see your work for partial credit. Unless you're very confident, but we all make mistakes, for sure. Especially in Algebra 2. Some of you might be coming into this class being like, math is easy. Might not be so easy for a while. And some of you are like, math's never been easy. You know what? We'll struggle through and get there together. Pretty similar to Mr. Grapp, I definitely don't want you to fail. I definitely want you to succeed, and I want you to do well. I'm not as exciting as he is. I don't know as much math history with stick figures and cavemen, but at the same time, he and I both definitely want you to make it through this class in great fashion. I was looking really quickly. I got distracted. I apologize, to see if there's anything else. Book covers. Some of you don't even have books, especially if you can't make it to campus. So I'm going to go look at your ebook in just a second through Big Ideas with you. And all of you might want to access your ebook because these books are kind of heavy to keep on pulling out. But if you do have this at home, please take care of it because these things are worth like $150. So maybe we can get used ones for cheaper these days, but they're very expensive college textbooks. So book covers, just pay attention to that. You guys might have other syllabus questions. Let's leave it for another day. You've seen probably so many syllabi the last couple days. Heard teachers talk so much. Let's close that. Unless you have any quick questions about supplies. Let me pause for that. You guys know how to unmute yourselves. Any questions about supplies that you want to ask?
For the spiral notebook, is it okay if we can just have like a 3-ring binder with notebook paper?
I understand why you ask that, but the very reason for having you have a homework spiral is so that it stays together. Depending on your organization, you might be like, my paper will be perfectly safe in my binder. I mean, for this distance learning, I won't even really be checking that it's in an actual spiral, so technically it's up to you. But once you get back to campus and you're stuffing stuff in your lockers and into your backpacks, etc., I see way too many sets of papers flying all over campus on a windy day. So I'm trying to make it easier on you so that doesn't happen. But for right now, distance learning, it's technically up to you, okay?
I just have like a folder in my binder so I can put all the papers there.
That's good. We're going to have a lot of homework. But feel free to drop by Math Lab if you want to talk through the specifications. Once again, if you're a super organized person, every now and then, maybe 1 or 2 per year, could pull off a binder and actually keeping all their homework together. But that's out of like 150 kids. So it's more of just, I think it's safer to be in a spiral. But feel free, drop by during Math Lab if you want to kind of talk through that anymore and see what's best for you. Okay, is there anybody else that has any other questions or any further questions on those supplies? Cool. Okay, so let's go ahead and talk really quickly about this organizational chart that I sent you guys. If a teacher ever sends you a Google Doc, or if anyone else ever sends you a Google Doc and you're like, ooh, I want that. I sent you one just to view it. I didn't actually make it a Google Classroom assignment. I didn't want to force you guys to do this. So I didn't have the option to make a copy for all of you. But Mrs. Cameron and Ms. Shoemaker, they were super awesome with like, hey, this is a really cool resource for the kids because there's so much for them to keep track of. So for you guys, for instance, you're not honors pre-cal, but you guys could go ahead and make a copy of this for yourself. That's what you can always do if someone just gives you something to view. You can make your own copy. It'll put it in your Google Drive. You can rename it to be whatever you want. You can go ahead and put in here Algebra 2, because it's period 6 for all of us that are in here. And then if I were you, I would copy and paste both of the Zoom links, both for class and for Math Lab. That way you just have them both there. And you could do that for any class. I don't know if any other class has more than one link. Some classes might give you new links every day. If that's it, then this isn't going to really help. Some Zoom classes are going to give you things like the meeting ID and the password, perhaps, for you to pop into that class. But either way, this gives you some sort of document just to kind of put all your Zoom links and just you open up one thing for the day and just click on whatever time it is. Okay, I'm going here. And then at the very end, I don't know if it would help you, but we got a copy of September's schedules. What are the A days? What are the B days? So if this would help you be more organized, or you even just condense all the information you're getting from all of this, please feel free to make a copy, make it your own, and copy and paste whatever you're getting from your teachers, okay? That's just a quick resource I wanted to show you. Now let's go to Google Classroom. Okay, if you guys have not yet seen Google Classroom's announcement, this morning before 8 o'clock, I try to have everything show up either at 8 or a little bit before 8. I did put up a quick agenda of our goal today. It does say we're going to cover section 1.1. We're more like going to introduce section 1.1. But mostly we're just doing like the troubleshooting stuff. But I do have your big ideas link here to log in. I do have the Zoom links. I do have your website because those are all things we're going over today. And then on Friday, I'm going to go ahead and edit this and go ahead and have a Friday section too. Once class is done today, I'm going to go ahead and attach the videos of the class right here. So then week 2 will be its own post, week 3 its own post, just to keep you guys organized. And I'm not really having any other things show up in this stream because I don't know, it gets really messy really fast if I have everything show up. And so over here in the classwork category, I just kind of have things delineated in different sections. So up here at the very top, you guys will always be able to access the class resources, which is just the general Algebra 2 site. As you guys see, the Zoom links and the big ideas. But then you also have a folder, and in that folder, I could put copies of handouts. I could put copies of notes. When we take notes for a day, today is not a full notes day, but on Friday, there's going to be a blank copy that you can open and have open on your computer. So if I ever go too fast, you can always like kind of just look in the notes and see what you missed. But then you won't see the problems that are all filled in, which is kind of annoying. So after we do the class and after I fill in the problems, etc., or you guys come back from breakout rooms and tell me how to do the problems and I affirm you on that, then I will save those copies of the worked out notes in this folder too. So if you're ever absent, you can come there, or if you miss anything in class, you can go there and kind of see whatever you missed as far as the problems that we were solving without having to watch the whole video. And then you guys saw all these little form things pop up, probably in Google Classroom. If you're getting notifications, they came to your email. Once again, I said, wherever you fill out these forms, the QR code, or whether you do it in Google Classroom, as long as you hit submit, you're good. Mark is done, turn it in. And this is the parent form that they got in that email that they need to fill out. Other than that, there's the Big Ideas class join. And I think I just got an email a second ago, and I wasn't able to answer it because I've been in class like boom, boom, boom today. But this is the class code in order for us to be able to get into Big Ideas Math. But you don't need, hold on, help me out. You guys over to the side, I can see your webcams. Can you give me 2 thumbs up if you didn't need a student ID? Did you have to put in a student ID? Give me thumbs up if you didn't. Okay. So then I at least have a few of you guys that were able to sign up without actually putting in a student ID. Someone was a little confused earlier. I think you have ID numbers on your student cards, your ID cards, but you didn't need to put that in. You just needed to go ahead and create, like I said in the tutorials that once again are on this website, there are these tutorials for Big Ideas Math. Okay, whew, that was a lot of talking. Go ahead, questions on Big Ideas Math or questions on Google Classroom? Noah, yeah, go ahead.
I just used my old pin and everything for Big Ideas Math.
Okay, that's totally fine because you already had a login, right? But when you have that login, let me go over to here. Here we go. These directions were for students that were brand new that needed to create an account. These are the directions for students that just were able to log in. So yeah, those of you that were able, like you had maybe Mrs. McCrae or someone in middle school, if you already had a Big Ideas account, that's totally fine. You would just need to add a class. So thanks, Noah, for bringing that up. I totally forgot to even mention that. So if some of you were like, wait a minute, I thought I had to create a new one. You could log into your old one if you remember it. I know some of you might not. It probably just was your Heritage Warriors. That's what all of us teachers tell you to use. But yeah, you would need to add a class. And to add that class, you would just use the class code for mine. That's up here on the screen. Thanks, Noah. Good idea. Anything else about Google Classroom or about Big Ideas that either you guys are stuck on or that you're confused about?
For the Big Ideas assignment,
Yeah.
I created my account.
Good.
And I'm able to access the book.
Okay.
So is that it?
Yes. Oh, my login is stuck. I don't know why it logged me out. I apologize. Yeah, when you pull up the e-textbook, and I think there's like a dynamic version. I think I'm in the instructor part right now, not the student view. But yeah, the book that you pull up online should be the exact same version. And I think even on my website, I put a free version where you don't have to sign in every time. But if I were you, I would just save your username and password to go quick. But yeah, whatever e-text you pull up on Big Ideas will be the same. And along those lines, you guys actually have a homework. It's a little baby one. It's actually called Homework 0, like it's that small. It's not even on the section itself. It's on the little preview material right before the section called Maintaining Math Proficiency. But if you want right now, if you haven't yet already, I think this showed up this morning right before class started, so you probably didn't even see it. That's why I was having you get into Big Ideas. Why don't you double check you can get into Big Ideas? Why don't you double check that you can find the assignment itself and that it popped up for you? It's possible you can see both homeworks. I actually meant for this one to show up later because it doesn't start until Friday. So if you do see the 1.1, just realize you're not supposed to be getting into that one first. It doesn't even start until Friday. But the one that starts today is Homework 00. And so when you guys go ahead and click on this, you will be able to do this homework. Now, my directions technically say, and I don't know how Mrs. McCrae did it, and I'm not sure Mr. Grapp used Big Ideas online. Not many of us did last year before quarantine. But the directions say to get out your textbook or e-textbook. You're totally right. Work through page 1, numbers 1 through 6. Go to the Big Ideas assignment, the Homework 00, and then go ahead and input your answers. The nice thing is it should be the exact same as the book work. And so basically what you're doing by going to Big Ideas is, number one, checking your answers right away and seeing if you're right. And not only seeing if you're right, but if you're wrong, or even if you're right and you like guessed or something, like it was just one of those lucky ones, they have different tutorials that you can try to follow to be like, okay, I really didn't know what was going on. And Algebra 2, at one point, all of you at one point are going to be like, I don't know what's going on. That's fine. There are really cool tutorials built into the Big Ideas website that you could, if you get it wrong, when you get it wrong, you can click and follow for helpful hints, or for, I think as long as you hit on one of them, maybe even a video tutorial that you watch. But then eventually, if you're online, I think it's between 4 and midnight, or 4 and, it might not be midnight. If anybody knows, turn off your mic and tell me. But there are live tutors during the school year that are online that are willing or able to answer your questions just like this. And I've enabled that feature also. So that's kind of cool, just because Algebra 2, once again, it's going to feel rough at times, because it's like, oh, remember all of Algebra 1? Oh yeah, master that, and let's go use it in all these different ways. So it's going to be really helpful for you guys to have tutorials. Anybody who's having issues getting into Big Ideas, or you're not seeing homework number 0, or any questions that you're having about Big Ideas?
Yeah, for Big Ideas, when you're working on an assignment, you just do it on a sheet of paper, right? You don't do anything else?
Well, technically in my Google Classroom, I actually just say go to your book or ebook and then work out these problems. But then in Big Ideas, when you click on the assignment, you're actually inputting, once you get the answers, you're inputting those into Big Ideas and submitting. And when you submit, you're seeing if it's right or wrong, trying to get them all right.
How do you do that?
Okay, let me go ahead and change to my student view, because I was in teacher view and that's not going to help. Student Algebra 2, homework 00, you enter that assignment. The other one's locked because it was posted early. It's not going to unlock until Friday because it's the next homework assignment. Technically, if you want to get ahead, it will show up in Google Classroom a little bit earlier. So you might be able to see those problem numbers. But Ryan, you would go ahead and just click start on the assignment itself, and then this should be the exact same homework problem as the first mathematical proficiency. I'm going to go ahead and open that in my book. Same thing as the e-text. There are so many pages on the front of this book. Sorry, the teacher edition. Can you guys hear this? That must be annoying. So Ryan, yeah, in the book it says 5 times 2 to the power of 3 plus 7. And so you already have it on your paper. Showing any work. I mean, this one, some of you might not need to do work to get that it's 47. Oh, I just gave you a homework problem. Anyway, but you could go ahead and input whatever answer you got and then submit it to, which another way of saying that is check answer. Does that make sense, Ryan?
So you go on the assignments tab, and where it says enter, you like put your ideas and it'll check it.
You put what you think is the answer from what you did on the paper, yeah. So this one, if I was to do 47, for instance, and if I was to say check answer here at the bottom, I have it right, and then I go to the next homework problem. And that's the exact same thing as number 2 on the homework. Does that make sense?
Okay, thank you.
Mm-hmm. It does have this cool Equatio thing built in, so if you guys notice when you go to, oh, it got mad at me though. I don't want to take a picture. Ooh, has anybody ever had this pop up and you can't get rid of it? There we go. You might just have to keep clicking around the blue stuff. That's a little awkward, but it does kind of have like, hey, you can do fractions, you can do square roots, you can make it look the way that you want it to, etc. So that might be a little bit different for some of you guys to get used to. But then you could go ahead and get out of here. There we go. So when you come up to the very front, you can get into that ebook. If you've never used this before, you can go into assignments and see what's due, but I'm always going to put it in Google Classroom. That way you guys can see. You can actually get away from the screens and just do your homework the good old-fashioned way, and then just come back in here to input your answers. Now, careful. After you input your answers, there is one more direction in Google Classroom, and it's what I have my pointer on right now. Work through the homework in your homework spiral. Go input your answers until hopefully you get them right. I think I give you like 5 tries, so you should have more than enough tries. If you're like checking in the back of the book, if you're calling a friend, if you're popping into Math Lab, that should be enough to get it right. You're not necessarily trying to get 100% on every homework. You're just trying to get a good score on every homework, whatever that looks like for you. But with multiple tries, you're definitely trying to get into like the A or B or C range for sure. Because of those multiple tries, you should be able to be looking at the section and be looking at the examples from class and figuring out if you ever do get stuck. And there is always that math lab option. You have until 8 a.m. You have until the beginning of the school day that it's due to turn that in on time. But here at the very end of the assignment says, after you submit the whole thing, so Ryan, you would keep working through, checking each one of those until you get to the end. At the very end, then you're going to attach a PDF scan. A PDF scan of the entire assignment with work shown attempted by the deadline. Now, I did say there was going to be a tutorial, and for some reason, my tutorial didn't show up. I must not have saved the link that I meant. So I'm going to go ahead and go find that right now. If you guys have never done a scan from your phone into a PDF. If you have an iPhone, this thing is easy. If you don't have an iPhone, you just probably have to find the appropriate app in order to, where did I do it for them? I think I did it in here. There we go. This is a quick YouTube video. I think it's like 2 minutes or less, either one. I'm going to attach it really quickly to your guys' assignments of how to use the Notes app on your iPhone. You don't even need to download another app. I know some of you guys, space is an issue. You don't even need to download another app. You can use the Notes app on your iPhone, and you can make a PDF really easily that way. So I'm going to go ahead and attach that right now, just in case you were confused on that. If you're having any issues, feel free, once again, to pop into Math Lab today or tomorrow before that first homework assignment is due. You guys went to your breakout rooms. You talked about big ideas. Is there anything else that you guys want to ask me right now as a class or coming from those breakout rooms?
The assignment
Yeah.
on the big ideas math doesn't show up for me.
Oh, you know what? It might have been, who said that? I didn't see you.
Kingston.
Oh, Kingston. I think you were in my class though, weren't you? There is the slight possibility if some of you guys joined the site later than others that it might not show up. So let me go ahead. Oh, well, technology. Kingston, would you mind right now just going ahead and writing me an email mentioning that it's not signing up for you if you notice my computer just got really mad at me? I think it's because I signed in as the student and I'm trying to be a teacher at the same time. So it's kind of like, don't think so. Go ahead and just shoot me a quick email and be like, hey, the assignment's not popping up. And during my, let's see, I think I'll have a break between 1 and 2. I'll figure that out for you, okay? And I'll respond. And if anyone else, the assignment did not show up when you clicked on assignments, careful, it showed up at 11 a.m. You might need to refresh the screen. But if it's still not there, just send me a quick email. If anyone joined the class late, there is a slight possibility that I said all students and it didn't include you because you weren't there yet. Kingston, is that good for you emailing me? I couldn't hear you. Stick around after class if you want to ask me anything else as far as like about that issue. And I might be able to look at it if we have a couple minutes at the end before you need to run off to period 7. Okay, so let's go ahead and get back into, there we go, our Google Classroom. As far as we've talked about big ideas, we've talked about if you are just adding a class rather than you creating an account. We've talked about our Zoom links. We've talked about how to attach a PDF scan. All right, the one thing that we haven't talked about from our logistics is notes and how we're supposed to do them. So let me go ahead before I actually have us play with, don't worry, no stress, play with notes just a little bit today. Let me go ahead and show you guys how to set up your composition book. So if you have them, awesome. If you don't, you'll just have to, let me make this big enough, there we go. You'll just have to reference this video at a later time and kind of come back to it. Here I have in front of me my sample composition book. If you were on campus, I would be like, please, I would even pass around Sharpies and like, get your name on this ASAP. Because when you lose your notebook, it's just very sad. Because I collected every day of tests as far as seeing if you are up to date, not just of that chapter, but of everything before that. Once again, why I want you to get a nice sturdy composition book, not one of those like, I'm sorry. If you got one that, it's not necessarily bad, but I have seen many composition books that aren't built the same way that kind of fall apart quickly. So be careful. Make sure that you have one that's not just style, but it's also actually useful in that it's strong. But in these composition books, we're going to go ahead and make a table of contents. And so let me go ahead and turn on my Promethean board so I can kind of model this for you guys.
Miss D, are you share screening? Because I can't see anything.
Oh, perfect. You're my hero. I must have turned it off when I was doing all the big ideas. Lizzie, was that you?
Yeah.
Thanks, kid. Let me get rid of the breakout rooms before I screen share. Good thing is I haven't really done anything yet, but there we go. You guys, oh, you couldn't see my camera either. All right. My nifty composition book. There you go. My nifty composition book. We're going to make a table of contents. Now, this one doesn't have anything written in because I'm using it for all my different classes. But we're going to go ahead and make it to where we can start notes for you guys. Okay? So to go ahead and make this particular for our class. There we go. Go ahead and start on your very first page of your composition book with a title. You could make it Algebra 2 if you want. I put that on the top of mine, meaning the very front cover.
I don't have a composition book.
And as I just said, that is one of our class supplies, but you might not have it today. So if you don't, just kind of make note. You can always take a picture of this once I finish it and once I finish setting up. And that's totally fine. So next class, hopefully you have your school supplies by then. And I do save these notes online like I kind of talked about earlier, so you can always access these later. The nice thing is, though, Friday is our first like real day, as in like we're really busting out a section. So here we are. For us, our chapter 1 is going to be linear functions. The Promethean boards, these are new to the science and math classrooms. They're like big old huge smart TVs, basically. A huge iPad, I guess. They make my handwriting look kind of awful, but that's okay. Chapter 1, linear functions. So every time there's a new chapter, you're going to put a new title. And then within that chapter, you're going to go ahead and put sections. Now, chapter 1 is going to be a little weird because we're going to do section 1.1, 1.2, 1.3. You guys could almost set up a whole chapter at a time. The only problem is we're actually doing something extra at the end of chapter 1 called an introduction to matrices. So that's a little weird. It's not from our book itself. It's actually kind of extraneous. Mr. Che back in the day, and actually Mr. Crawford before him, matrices aren't in your actual book, but they're pretty important for kind of the future math. So we do a little introduction here in chapter 1. But what you're going to do for each of these sections when you get to them is you're going to title them. For instance, the title for the one today, and I think I just had it on the screen a second ago, but there we go. As Lizzie just shared, that probably wasn't up there for you. Section 1.1, you guys can already fill in with parent functions and transformations. I'm going to go ahead and do that also, though, so I'll go back to the screen I was just on. But anytime I put up a new section of notes, you guys should be able to find the title right there towards the beginning. So, parent functions and transformations. Now, in math, there's all sorts of shortcuts. There's all sorts of abbreviations. Mathematicians are kind of lazy, not in the sense of like justification. They realize they have to actually have a well-formed argument for any solution they're trying to show, but they do like to write as little as possible. So instead of functions all the way, you could do FNS. That's a very common abbreviation for functions. I use like a little, you could do an ampersand, but I'm horrible at drawing them, so I kind of do a little cheater version. Parent functions, and so I don't mind if you shorten things a little bit, but the main idea is if you need to ever access this information later, like I want you to be able to go to your table of contents and actually find it. So right here, once again, where we're putting this is the very front cover of your notebook. Each class is a little different as far as the chapter, so I'm going to put back up what our chapter 1 is, linear functions. Section 1.1, section 1.2, and then there's this whole extra thing called page numbers, which is weird because your composition book has no page numbers in and of itself. So when I write over here page numbers, and I put page 1, you're like, of my textbook? No. It's actually, ironically, not page 1 of your textbook. That's the maintaining thing. It's probably page 2 of your textbook as far as section 1.1. Might not even be page 2. Page 3. There you go. But we're not talking about your textbook. Your textbook has pages. Why would we write that down? We're talking about your notebook. And so here's what I want you to do with your table of contents. And let me make myself big again so you guys can see. We're going to do a lot of sections this year. And as we do a lot of sections, it's going to take up not just 1 page, but probably 2. And depending on, my lines are really little. If you guys see, I chose to get a graph composition book. I'm not forcing you guys to. College ruled, wide ruled, you might have to buy a lot of these. Probably want college ruled at least. But whatever your preference is, you're going to need to maybe skip 3 pages even for your table of contents. With mine, since it's so small, 2 is enough. And then I went ahead and put page number 1 down there at the bottom on the back. That's going to be page number 2, and then page number 3, and then keep going, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, etc. So that you guys can go ahead and, I do not need myself big anymore. So that you guys can fill in for whatever section what page of your notes you're on. So throw on a TV show and just number your entire notebook. No big deal. You have it done for the semester, maybe even for the year, depending on whether it's big enough or whether you write small enough. But even though you could get to your book and you could fill in the titles of all these, you wouldn't know what the page numbers are until we actually take notes, if that makes sense. So you're just going to have to wait until we get to a section and then go ahead and fill in the page number for that. But with that at least gets us set up for Friday, because Friday we're going to go ahead and jump in. Try to make it not so dry and boring because there were a lot of logistics and I was a little worried about the big ideas and getting you guys all in there. So that's kind of what that homework is for tonight, in the sense that you do have like the just get into big ideas, which is Google Classroom. Just mark it as done once you've joined my class. But then there is that homework 0, just 6 problems. Aren't meant to be super hard. Think order of operations in PEMDAS when you do them. But it's basically just proving to me that you are in big ideas and you are using it and you're able to use it okay. And that you can scan a PDF and upload it into your Google Classroom, if that makes sense. So we do have a little bit of notes, but we're not going to go super crazy because actually the activities that came thereafter, I actually would much rather, if you guys don't mind, wait until Friday because actually all of these kind of just lead into the lesson itself. So I might wait on those all together unless if you guys just want to ponder this page for because we only have about 5 minutes left. If you want to ponder this page just for a second, I'm going to try to make it can I make it full screen? Oh, you're not going to be able to see it. Oh, yes, you can because you can see my whole screen. I forgot. The recording isn't going to get quite everything, but that's all right. What is a parent function? If you guys are pondering this, I'm just curious if you know what any of these are looking at them. Don't give away the answers yet. We'll wait until Friday. But our goal, kind of by the end of Algebra 2, we work on it more in pre-calculus, but our goal is to kind of get familiar with all of these guys. And even though you guys might not be familiar with all of them, you should be able to pick out the one that everyone should know coming from Algebra 1, even though it's been a couple years. What's the one? You can throw it in the chat if you want. I'm going to do a countdown, 3, 2, 1. Or you can just go ahead and unmute your microphone for a high five when we get back from quarantine. Which one did you talk about the most in Algebra 1? Ryan started identifying them. Would you guys agree with him that those are the ones that you should recognize from Algebra 1? Oh, nice, David. We could technically add that in too. If you guys aren't checking out the chat, that might be a good thing to open up. Oh, we could call it that, Ryan. That's not the commonplace name for it, but it does have a vertex. Technically, a lot of other functions have vertices as well. So David and Ryan both brought up, like the first 2 answers I saw were parabola, and linear, and they aren't wrong. Technically, as far as like the most familiar one, it is one of the ones that's already been said. Doug, what's up, kiddo?
Oh, I had a question. So
Yeah.
I was just gonna ask, like at the end of the semester or whatever, like, do we turn in like our notebooks, like, so you go over it and grade them, or is it just?
Well, I mean, if you guys were here on campus, literally every test, I'd be like, okay, put your notebooks at the front of the room, get out your pencil and your graphing calculator, let's go. Like, that's the normal procedure. So with us being online, it'll probably be something where I have a Zoom review session. I'll probably make it even extra credit, and one of the math labs will just be for reviewing for the test if you guys come by and ask questions and practice problems with me, etc. And then I'll allow you to hold up your notebook to the camera. That's what I did last year. So that way you didn't have to like scan every single page of your notes. That would be so annoying. But just to let me see that you're keeping up with it. And then if it's something where, or when we get back on campus, then it's something where every chapter test, I would just be collecting and looking at it real fast. Does that make sense?
Yeah, thank you.
Yeah, you're welcome. Nobody wants to make a guess on which one is the most familiar from Algebra 1? Are you thinking it in your head and not saying it out loud? We'll need to get some more discussion going on. But yeah, F and C. But Ryan, if I was trying to talk about the one that was most familiar, actually C, a lot of people still get confused because they're not sure how to write the equation of a horizontal line. F would be the one that people are most used to with y equals mx plus. But I think everybody's tired. I think math is one of the last things probably most of you want to do at this point in the day after you've heard me talk forever and ever. So I'm going to go ahead and get out of this, if I can escape my full screen. F11. Forgot about that shortcut. Now let's do something silly to end class. If you guys want to get to know me, I'm going to have a Flipgrid assignment that's going to be coming up pretty soon. Flipgrid, if you guys don't know what it is, it's just like basically you take a quick 1 minute, 2 minute, 3 minute video. I think there's a cap. I don't remember exactly how long the cap is. But where you take a quick video of yourself, and one of them is going to be introducing yourself to me, because it's hard. I just see your faces, and I don't really get to know who you are unless you guys talk, but some of you don't want to, and that's okay. I understand that also, which is why we're going to have breakout rooms, and usually I pop into the breakout rooms, etc. But to kind of start it off, even though I'm going to do a quick little Flipgrid video also, and I don't know, think of new details to share with you guys, I figured I would just go through my camera roll, which I did this morning. I picked out some of the most, I don't know, probably the pictures that are nearest and dearest to my heart to show you kind of bits and pieces of who I am. So first is my dog, just because, I don't know, he's cute. He's in his happiest place ever. Chap is his name. He's a good old chap. He's riding in the backseat of the car. Whenever you say if you want to go for a ride, he comes running, and he's so excited. He sticks his head out the window. He's a good pup. These are my parents. We're back in South Carolina for a family reunion last summer. So anyway, so hot and humid and lots of mosquitoes, but I like the lightning bugs. A lot of family back east. This is the most recent mission trip. I usually lead mission trips with Heritage. We weren't able to last year for a lot of reasons. You guys can see PK in there, but most of these people have graduated since then. Natalia graduated last year. And most of the other ones graduated 2 years ago. But we were down in the Dominican Republic where Heritage has gone multiple times. This was Sunday, so we were all dressed up. We don't do this every day. Usually we're in like shorts and T-shirts, and we're working in lots of different areas. But Heritage Missions is definitely near and dear to my heart. This next one is in Ventura with some alumni, getting some fish tacos. But love beach towns, love exploring, love hanging out and catching up with kids, new and old. This is the closest trip, or the last trip that I took before COVID. I went with a friend to Seattle for a few days. She was able to kind of just take a break and have a girls' weekend away from her husband and kids, and we went up there and just kind of explored. So that was, oh man, Seattle's fun. Well, it got crazy recently, though. Sadly, that was before all the crazy. That's my sister. She's way shorter than I am and 5 years older. And she and her husband are both back working at Ohio State. They're both science professors back there. Super smart, way smarter than I am, but they're short. It's cute, but I'm just tall. You guys can make that argument also. This is Calc A, B, and BC from 4 years ago? Maybe 3 years ago. Callie Smith right in the middle. Anyway, We used to have to take our AP in the gym because there was so many of us and it was crazy times. And I usually bribe people with food if you know anything about me. So I'm so sorry I can't bribe you with food right now until you guys get back into class. One of my favorite memes is, I don't know, it just makes me smile every time. Elephants think we're cute because we're like puppies to them. Don't ask. I don't know. It's funny if it's true. Another inspirational meme, but ironically I actually like cauliflower pizza crust from Trader Joe's. Put some chicken and pesto on it. Random stuff about me. I am single. I don't have kids, but man, I have a lot of students from the past few years, and it is so sad not having you guys on campus. So until